At first, earlier today, I got a chance to speak with the former U.S. Senator from North Carolina. Of course, he was the 2004 vice presidential candidate for the Democrats. He is now running for president, as you all know. Please welcome John Edwards. Hey.
Nice to see you. Good turn.
Hollywood. Not so bad.
Thank you.
Well, that must make you feel good. I'm sure middle of a very busy day you have out here.
Can we move them all to Iowa, New Hampshire?
Yeah, I was gonna say, now how long have you been at this? When did you declare?
About 37 years ago.
It must seem like that, right? It must seem like you're on the longest business trip of your life.
It's been a while.
And how is it living in Iowa?
It's fine. I like the people in Iowa.
Oh, I know.
And New Hampshire. I'm not just living in Iowa.
Right. And where do you stay? I mean, you don't impose on people and live in their houses, do you?
Sometimes.
You do?
Sometimes, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you live in hotels?
Hotels, whatever hotels nearby.
And Elizabeth is with you for most of the time?
She's with me part of the time. Sometimes she's out campaigning herself, and sometimes the kids are with me.
And you have a bus?
Got a bus sometimes, not all the time.
Is it romantic? Usually when people are on a quest, they say it's romantic. No,
It's way not romantic.
Oh, it's not? No. A campaign?
Except, of course, what Elizabeth's saying.
Yeah. And it must drive, I mean, you must go nuts saying the same thing over and over a million times.
I don't say the same thing over and over.
Yes, you do. Come on. You get asked the same questions, you have to. I mean, that's part of the gig, right?
So it's the same. Yeah.
I mean, I used to hate it when I had to do 2 shows a night and tell the same jokes.
Yeah, try doing 6 town halls or 8
Right.
town halls a day, yeah.
Okay. Well, let's get to some substantive things because, I've been asked on other shows who I support for president, and I always dodge it, which I think is fair for all the guests who come on this show. You know, I don't want to make Kucinich mad. But when Jay Leno or Larry King have asked me, who I support, I dodge it, and I say, but I think, it's just as an analyst, this guy would be a sure winner. Because, no. Just as an analyst. Because, when I go through my head, the other candidates, the Democrats do have a lot of good people this time. Come on. But when I think, Hillary Clinton, what could go wrong? Well, yeah, things could go wrong. But when I said this to Bill O'Reilly, he just went nuts. I want to show you the clip of Bill O'Reilly when we had the same conversation. I would say for the Democrats, the one sure winner would be John Edwards.
Now, I think you're out of your mind that John Edwards would never get anywhere close to winning any election because his campaign is just disorganized, and he doesn't know what he's saying from day to day, and he's very left-wing.
Really?
He used to be a moderate. Now he's a left-wing guy. But look, you may be right and I may be wrong.
I love the way he qualified. These are my strongly held opinions, but I could be all completely batshit.
But that's the best endorsement a Democrat could get is have Bill O'Reilly be against you.
Why does he think you're so left-wing?
I have no idea. Maybe he thinks I'm actually saying something. Somehow if we don't say something, we're not, we're in the center. But if you actually say something, they put you in the left wing.
I mean, poverty, yes, you were kind of out front on that last time. Health care, now everybody concedes you had the first plan.
Yeah.
Why is it the best one?
Mine?
Yeah.
Well, some others have come along. Senator Clinton came along with a plan a month or so ago. It's very similar.
So why is yours better? Is it the same plan?
No, I think it's a different approach. I think one of the lessons she thinks she learned from the failure of the 1990s is the way you get a health care plan passed is you sit at a table with insurance companies and drug companies and lobbyists and you negotiate. And those people are never going to give anything away. I think you got to take them on and beat them if you want universal health care.
What do you... Yeah, I would agree with that. What do you make of her vote on the Iranian situation, that whole brouhaha about calling them a terrorist force?
It's very troublesome. I mean, you got Bush and Cheney rattling their saber about Iran. Sounds very similar to what we heard on Iraq. And they want to declare the Iranian Revolutionary Guard a terrorist organization. Some good people who are running for president, Senator Biden, Senator Dodd, voted no. Senator Clinton voted yes. I strongly disagree with it. I think we can't give this president an inch when it comes to something like war. And it just also, I worry. I mean, I worry 6 months from now, Bush invades Iran. Are we going to hear, well, only if I'd known then what I know now? You know, we've been down this road. We got to learn our lessons.
Well, my terror alert went up this week when I saw this report on the environment. I think my environmental color code is now from orange to red. It said that 23% of the North Pole, you know, Santa Claus's home, disappeared just in the last 2 years. It's so much worse than it was just when Al Gore's movie came out.
Yeah.
And what they were saying was that 80% of the sun's energy and radiation bounces off this ice.
Right.
So if the ice goes, we're basically going to boil.
Right.
So tell me why you, of all the candidates, are hands down going to be the best president on the environment, because I need to hear that.
Because it's a crisis, an absolute crisis, and America's got to understand what a crisis is, and what a crisis it is. I think we've got to do a lot of things. We ought to have a national cap on carbon emissions. We ought to make the polluters pay. We ought to use the money that the polluters pay to invest in wind and solar and cellulose-based biofuels. No more nuclear power plant. I'm against that. No more coal-fired power plant. Make the situation worse. And here's the most radical idea. How about if we actually have a president who, instead of promising everything, says to America, we're going to solve these problems, you're going to have to be willing to sacrifice. And sacrifice does not mean going shopping or staying at home and watching television. It means...
Gas tax?
Yeah, it means... That may be necessary. It means being patriotic about something other than war. That's what it means.
But you support ethanol. You want us to produce 65 billion gallons by 2025, and ethanol from corn, which of course is grown in Iowa, doesn't do anything to reduce, from everything I've read, our dependency on foreign oil, and only makes a small dent in greenhouse gases. Why is this not a boondoggle? Why do I think if we had the first primary in Vermont, we would be subsidizing biofuels made out of syrup?
Because it's your job to be a cynic. Well,
it is, but am I wrong to be cynical about ethanol? Corn
Ethanol
ethanol
is not the ultimate answer. I think what ethanol does is it operates as a transitional product, allows us to create an infrastructure for delivery of other cellulose-based biofuels. When they're ready to put in place and marketable, then we're ready to go to it immediately. I think that's the way to think about ethanol.
And this environment problem that we have, how do you sell that to poor people? How do you sell that to people who have such immediate concerns that they say, come on, I can't think about what's going on with the North Pole and polar bears. I can't feed my kids. I can't get them health care.
But you could feel, when I was growing up in the 60s and John Kennedy said America's going to the moon, it wasn't just rich people that thought that was a good idea. Low-income families, middle-class families, people want to be asked to do something. They want to take responsibility for their country. We got all these politicians who think the way you're supposed to talk about this is take personal responsibility. Take responsibility for yourself. Well, how about if we take responsibility for this country that we all love, instead of just being responsible for ourselves? I think they will respond. Now, that doesn't mean you're talking about green. New Orleans, for example, was a great city. We had a great example, opportunity to rebuild New Orleans as a green city. It wasn't done. And by the way, one last thing, having spent so much time in New Orleans and announced my presidential campaign from there, we don't need a surge in Baghdad. We need a surge in New Orleans. That's where we need a surge.
And speaking of surges, I hate to get into the horse race aspect of it, but how is John Edwards going to surge ahead of your two competitors?
Because when it gets to the end, at this point in 2003, Howard Dean looked like the runaway winner for the nomination.
Right.
When it gets to the end, people in Iowa and New Hampshire who are looking you in the eye and not just watching you for 30 seconds on television, they want to know what you're made of. I mean, they want to know if you really stand for something, if you're willing to take on this system that doesn't work, whether your ideas for health care, ending the war, are real, and whether they can trust you. They actually want you to say the same thing, although it may be boring sometimes, to them as you say everywhere else in America. They want you to believe in what you say so that they know when the crunch comes, they can count on you to fight for what it is you actually believe in.
Well, I think you're terrific. I would give you money if I thought it wouldn't come back to hurt you.
No,
You'd take
that's
my money?
Money.
You'd take my money, really?
Absolutely. In a heartbeat.
I feel like Ellen with the dog. Thank you very much. John Enbridge, ladies and gentlemen. He'll take